Okay, it is Friday night once again here at the Man Cave, and it's time to do our little Friday night thing that we do. I hope everybody is finding their way around this new setup I've got going here with Crowdcast. I'm really enjoying what abilities Crowdcast is offering me here. The ability to do the broadcast through Crowdcast and through Facebook at the same time. There's a little bit of a lag on the Facebook side, so I'm bringing that up now and shutting the sound down. So, alrighty, looks like we're ready to get started. So, if you're new to what I've got going on here, I'm going to show you a screen here in just a moment that has got the links on it that you're going to want to pay attention to when it comes time to do live streaming. If you can follow me on the Crowdcast page, this crowdcast.io/JM if you'll log that page, I think you may be able to subscribe to that page and get updates when I post scheduled live streams. So that's going to make life a little easier for you. If you follow me from there, the Crowdcast side's a little more robust than the Facebook side, but the live stream itself is going to appear the same from both setups, hopefully. So we will go from there. So that should have brought me back here. I hope everybody saw that screen. So that should have, I believe it worked. Okay. So now we're going to have a drink just like we do every Friday night. And tonight I'm going to work a little bit more on this bottle of Jack Daniel's Sinatra Select that I have. Like I said before, this is the most expensive bottle of whiskey I've ever bought. And it's good. I'm going to give it credit for being good. It's not one of my favorites, but this is by far the smoothest drinking whiskey I've ever had. So we're going to have a couple fingers of that here in the old number 7 glass and get our Friday night rolling. If you're having a drink with me, let me know what you're having. We got Sharon and Penny and Beth and Russ with me here on Crowdcast. Let's see what's shaking over on Facebook. We got Randy and Tom Cleveland. Yeah, we got a few people hanging out here with us tonight. So, cheers. Russ is having a 12-year-old single malt. Penny's having a Macallan single malt double cast. I can't afford Macallan. You guys are out of my league. Well, I afforded the Jack Daniel's here because it's something I really wanted after I tasted it at the distillery, but I'll never spend that much money. I won't say never. I hope I'll never spend that much money on another bottle of whiskey. I'm so impressed with the Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Select at $55 a bottle or whatever that cost. I'd be happy if that's all I ever had, but I'm still looking for things that I like that well since this is new to me. So, in other news this week, on Monday, I got my second dose of the COVID vaccine, and I got that through 2 facts, actually. I'm a healthcare worker, as some of you know, but I was also participating in a Pfizer clinical trial, and I got my vaccination through the clinical trial rather than through my employer. But here's what I can tell you, and here's what you have to look forward to. Uh, there, Russ, there is. Uh, you can support me on the Patreon page, patreon.com/j or /man cave meals. I'll show that link again a little bit later. Uh, I have memberships there where you get extra content, and it helps me fund some of this stuff. And thanks for asking. I'll bring that up again in this live stream a little bit later. But my first dose of the COVID vaccine, the only side effect I had from that first dose is my arm got a little bit sore, about like it does when you get a flu shot. There was no other effect that I had. None that I can recall, other than just a little sore place on your arm that lasted a day or two, which is not uncommon for something like a flu shot. If you've ever had a flu shot and seen that happen, it's just like that on dose number 1. Everybody had me terrified just about for dose number 2. I've heard people complaining about all the horrible side effects of the second dose. So I had my second dose on Monday, and I had it about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I figured Tuesday was going to be rough. So I went to bed Monday night. My arm was a little sore again, which same sort of deal, but it may have been a little more sore on the second shot than it was on the first one. But on Tuesday when I got up, I just felt I never really, you know how you feel a little groggy when you wake up in the morning? Well, I kind of felt that way all day. It felt like a very, very mild hangover, or a very, very mild case of jet lag. You know, those of you that travel west to east a lot, you know, you get that feeling, and it just never went away. But I went to bed Tuesday night, and Wednesday woke up just fine. No odd feelings whatsoever. I felt perfect. I didn't have any issues with these side effects. My mother, who is 75, got her second dose of the Pfizer vaccine on Wednesday this week. And yesterday, she said she didn't have any issues with it. She had a little bit of a sore arm, but I called her, you know, to check in, because I expected her to be feeling a little puny, because I did, but she didn't. You know, it didn't affect her. She said she didn't have any symptoms or side effects that she could identify from it. So that's that. So those of you who are looking for side effects stories, that's mine. I've had coworkers who have had it, who have not had any side effects, and I've had coworkers that have called in sick the next day, didn't go to work because of it. So, you know, it's going to affect everybody differently, but that was my experience with that. Okay. Russ was just asking about supporting my efforts here. I am going to share that screen again because I can do that now with this cool software. I'm going to bring that image back up. This is the patreon.com/mancavemeals. Patreon is a platform I'm working on now, as well as Facebook, where I produce content, but there's free content there, just like I post on Facebook, but there is also membership content that's exclusive to people who are contributors. So if you want to become a part of that, that's the only way I have set up directly that you can support my efforts financially, is by becoming a subscriber on the Patreon side there. So that's all I have for that. Yeah, Penny, it's like a brain fog. That's what it's like. It's just like being, you know, you just feel a little bit slower than normal. Okay, the next thing I've got this week, my Porter Road order showed up. this week. I ordered a bunch of good stuff from Porter Road. I'm going to give you a look at that also. It's I got 6 cuts of meat. I don't know if you can see my mouse moving around in here or not. I hope you can, but this is a rack of lamb ribs right here that I bought from Porter Road. This cut down below it here on the left bottom is a lamb shoulder. And I've never cooked either one of these before, so I'm looking forward to those. This small piece on the bottom here in the center is what's called a Terrace Major. It's a single muscle roast, beef roast that's really super delicious. I've cooked one of these before. I'm going to do another video with this one. Over here on the top, on the right side, I've got a beef neck, a dry-aged beef neck roast that I'm going to cook. And down below that on the right in the middle there, that is a pork brisket. I've never cooked a pork brisket before. Looking forward to that. And down below that in the bottom right corner, I should have turned this one up the other way. This is one of those double cut pork chops from Porter Road. That thing's amazing. So I'm really, really looking forward to cooking that again. It's basically a 2-bone, bone attached pork loin roast from Porter Road. They're delicious. I've had 2 of those, in fact, before. This will be my 3rd one of those. And I'm going to try to come up with a unique cook on that this time around. So yeah, we're going to have a good time with that. And what's next on my list here? Oh, we're going to talk about some of the stuff I've done this week. I did some chicken wings. I'm going to take you back to some pictures here again. The first thing I put out this week was a chicken wing cook where I was featuring the Wing Zing seasonings from Atlanta Grill Company. And this is my chicken. I buy the whole chicken wings. I don't buy the party wings. I like getting the whole wing because I think I get bigger pieces after everything's said and done. I cut the little wing tips off and then just separate the wingette or the drumette from the wing. When you slice down between those with a sharp knife, you slice down through that flap of skin, you pull those things apart, that joint just opens up and you just drop the knife right through the joint. You don't have to cut through a bone or anything to separate those, and they come apart very easily. And I just put those, I towel dried those by hand with paper towels to get them nice and dry, tossed them in a mixing bowl and put them back in the refrigerator for a couple hours. And then I put those guys on the pellet Joe. I fired up the pellet Joe and ran it at about 400 degrees. And this is a picture I made of these wings right before I was about ready to pull these. And you can look at this and see, you can actually see the crispy skin I get on those. I like to cook these things indirect at 400 degrees. And these went about 40 minutes. You probably could come, but these probably could have come off a couple minutes before that, but I had a really super nice texture on these at 40 minutes. They had a definite crunch. And then what happens, that's where the Atlanta Grill Company Wing Zing comes into play. After you cook these things, you take them off the grill, and for the last couple of minutes I had them on the grill, I put a measuring cup on the grill with some butter in it and let that butter melt. And then I took the wings off, put them back in my mixing bowl. I drizzled them with the melted butter and tossed them to get a nice coat of the melted butter on the wings. And then I just shake in this Wing Zing, and I use this honey barbecue flavor. And this particular flavor blend of the Wing Zing has a twin flavor, just like it says, it's honey and barbecue. It's got like freeze-dried honey that's a powder form in there, and the barbecue flavor on this has that flavor that reminds you kind of a barbecue potato chip flavor. and these were absolutely delicious. And this was the first video I did for this week, and that's how those ended up, and they were just delicious. I had wings for lunch when I made these, and then I went on yesterday and made another video for that I published today, which was these bourbon glazed. This is bourbon glazed pepperoni, and I've done something similar to this before, but I've always done it with beer. And this time, I took a whole pepperoni log and sliced it up fairly thickly, and I made a glaze out of brown sugar bourbon and a little bit of dry mustard. I put that in a cast iron. It's about a 2 or 2.5 quart cast iron pot that I've got. I set that on the grill and simmered it at 250 and let it reduce just to the point where it thickens up enough to where it'll coat the back of a spoon. And then I toss the pepperoni in there and let the pepperoni steep in that for about 15 or 20 minutes. You don't want to overcook pepperoni, but this stuff's amazing. That sweet bourbon glaze on here really brings a flavor, and this is a great party food. You can make as much of this as you like. You don't even have to use pepperoni. The first time I did this, I did it with summer sausage and then started doing it with pepperoni, but I've come to the conclusion you could do this with any kind of sausage you want. But if you're using an uncooked or an uncured sausage, you need to make sure that you cook it to where the sausage pieces get up to at least a safe temperature inside, which would be 160, 165 for that. So that's where I landed in my cooking projects this week. And let's see. Next week, I'm going to do a couple of other things. I'm going to do at least 2 more game day sort of things. There's one thing I'd like to do that's a dip recipe. It's a sausage and pimento cheese dip that you cook on the grill, or I cooked it on the grill. It's a recipe from Chef Vivian Howard. I don't know if any of you are familiar with her. She's here in North Carolina. She owns a restaurant down in the eastern part of the state called The Farmer and the Chef. And she had a TV series on North Carolina Public TV called, I can't remember. I don't know if I can remember what the name of that series was, but I watched all of it. I kind of binge watched it, and it was really good. And I bought her cookbook. She's got a cookbook called Deep Run Roots. She's got a new book out now, and I can't remember what it's called. But this Deep Run Roots cookbook has a lot of recipes in it. There was another restaurant they owned in Kinston called some kind of oyster bar. Oh, the name of it's escaping me now. But this recipe is one they served there, and it was a dip, and it was really delicious. My wife and I stopped in there one time, and I had this, and it was really amazing. So I came home and I decided to make it, and I'm going to do another video on that we can do it. And Jimmy says it's The Chef and the Farmer. Okay, was that the name of the show too? I couldn't remember that. Jimmy, I'm surprised you're with me tonight. You should be sleeping because Daytona's this weekend. You should be sleeping up on that. So, or the Rolex 24 hours of Daytona. Doesn't that start tomorrow? So, and just so you'll be proud of me, I did sign up for IMSA TV, so I can start watching some of that myself instead of just watching F1 all the time. Yeah, I know my friend Jimmy Hazelwood down in Charleston, he's an IMSA fan. I don't know if he's much of an F1 fan. He might be. I follow F1 very tightly, and I know Jimmy follows IMSA very tightly. I'm kind of interested to see how Kevin Magnussen pulls out. That's one of the reasons I want to watch this time around, because I kind of like Kevin. So, okay. Yeah, if it has wheels, I'll watch it. But yeah, we're going to do this This sausage and pimento cheese dip, it's really, really highly addictive, and it's got a beautiful flavor when you put it on the grill and put a little bit of smoke to it. It's just another one of those things where you take something that's already good, cook it on the grill, and it's that much better. I don't know what I'm going to do for my final one. I'm going to do another game day thing. I'm still thinking about doing a skillet cookie. I'd like to do a skillet cookie. I don't know if I want to do chocolate chip. I've done a couple of those. I might try to come up with something a little different. I'm going to have to get the Googles out and see what I can find. I really like the chocolate chip one. I also really like my brownie, my iron pan brownie, but we'll figure something out. But after that, I'm ready to get started on a couple of different things. Mainly, I want to do this demystifying pizza thing. I want to try to help more people become more comfortable with making homemade pizza dough. There's really, I'd really love to see a lot more people baking pizzas at home with dough that you've made at home. And I'm going to make 3 videos. I think I mentioned this before. We're going to do a quick dough that is start to finish 2 hours on the dough. And we're going to use that exact same recipe, and we're going to change the amount of yeast we put in it. And we're going to make a 24-hour dough where you can see how flavor develops into something even more impressive when it slow ferments in the refrigerator for 24 hours. Then we're going to bake that pizza. We're going to bake a pizza using that dough. And then we're going to do a 72-hour dough that's the exact same recipe once again. And we're going to use just even less yeast in it. And we're going to let the thing go for 3 days in the refrigerator before we shape our pizzas. And we're going to cook that pizza. And after everything is said and done, each of those 3 pizza doughs has got the same amount of hands-on work. It's no harder to make one than the other. They're all easy to make. Just the 72-hour dough, you just got to know that you want to have pizza 3 days out before you start making a 72-hour dough. We're going to cook those in 3 different ovens. I'm going to cook one on the Kamado Joe with the Dojo. We're going to cook one in the Rock Box, and we're going to cook one in the Alpha wood-fired oven. I don't know which order I'll do those in. It doesn't really matter to me one way or the other. I'll cook because all 3 of those pizza platforms are awesome in my opinion. We're going to use the Dojo in the Kamado Joe because we're going to talk about something else related to that here in just a second when we get to the gadget for this week. Let me see where we are over here. Yeah, that's going to be the next gadget thing we talk about. Okay. Yeah, the Facebook crowd says they're excited about the pizza dough. Doesn't look like my video stream quality is very good over there on Facebook, but it looks fine over here on the Crowdcast side. I don't know what's happening there. I really don't. I haven't had that problem before I started this stream with Crowdcast. I wonder why it's having a problem feeding that. I'll have to dig into that, but one other quick topic I wanted to talk about. Besides whiskey. You folks who are with me who are newer in the world of barbecue, there's 2 things I want you to pay less attention to. That's bark and smoke rings. I don't know what is happening with. I read a lot of commentary on Facebook about people not being happy with their bark, or they focus an awful lot on the bark, and they don't pay as much attention to the meat itself. They're worried about the bark. There's a lot of conversation about the bark and getting meat off when the bark's right, or bark being too soft, bark being too firm. Uh, but there's not a lot of talk about the meat itself. Bark, in my opinion, is an accessory. Bark's not a main event. Smoke rings are an accessory. Smoke rings have nothing to do with the flavor of your meat. It has nothing to do with how much smoke your meat got on it either. It's a chemical reaction that happens, that sometimes it happens well and sometimes it doesn't, depending on the environment you're cooking in and depending on what you put on the meat. It's got no impact on the flavor. If a smoke ring is something you have to have, I'll teach you a little trick about putting a little bit of pink curing salt in your rub. Then you'll get a smoke ring every time, because that's putting the sodium nitrite that you need onto the surface of the meat in an unnatural way rather than in a natural way from the fire. It'll guarantee you a smoke ring, and you can spot these when you put the sodium nitrite in your barbecue rub. Some of them are really easy to spot, because you'll see a smoke ring that's a very dark red, a very clearly defined smoke ring. When a smoke ring looks that clean, that clear, that crisp, they're almost always produced artificially by adding something to the rub that's got sodium nitrite in it. I've experimented with this a lot of ways. You can take a little bit of water, you can dissolve a little bit of pink curing salt in some water and just rub this water over the surface of your meat before you put your rub on it. Then you're going to get this beautiful smoke ring. But that's the way you get the smoke ring if you absolutely have to have it. But the bark, worry more about when your meat's done and when it's tender. If the bark's not perfect, that's not gonna have any impact on your meal. The cook is typically the only one that's gonna have anything to say about the bark, unless it's so hard you can't bite through it. And if it's so hard you can't bite through it, you've probably got more problems than the bark. Yeah, Tom, you're right. The TV stuff and the competitions are all about smoke rings. If you talk to anybody who's a judge or a competitor in the barbecue world, they'll tell you they don't judge on smoke rings. Smoke rings are not included in the judging, and they're not. That's not a criteria. But you'll never see somebody turn in a box of brisket slices that doesn't have a big old smoke ring, a big old bold, vibrant smoke ring on it. And I don't know, if I was competing, I would do that too. I would make sure I had the smoke ring. I've never seen a picture of a blue ribbon or a winning box that didn't have a smoke ring. So you got that to think about. But if you're a beginner, don't worry about bark. Don't worry about smoke rings. Worry first and foremost about, is my meat tender as it should be? Beginners that I watch and read commentary from on all of these Facebook groups are more likely, most of them pull their meat off before it's done. They'll say, I cook it to 198 degrees, or I cook it to 200 degrees. And they're cooking to a temperature rather than a tenderness. And when it comes to something like brisket, it's been a very, very rare occasion that I've had a brisket that was tender enough to come off the grill till I was at 204, 203, 204, maybe even 205 in the point. I like mine to get way on up there, and I foil mine. And it's experience more than anything. I've got a couple of techniques I use where I get my brisket tender, but I can pretty much predict the time that it's going to take to get that brisket off the grill. I can have I cook a brisket. When I cook a brisket, it's coming off the grill between 12 and a half hours and 14 hours every time. That's the technique I do allows me to be finished in that hour and a half window on about any brisket I want to cook. Maybe I'll do a video about that sometime here in the future. But the bark is something that you don't want to mess with. Don't worry about the bark so much. Worry about the bark after you've perfected getting a brisket tender. And this came up today, not even talking about brisket. I saw this. Somebody was worried about bark on beef ribs. And guys, every piece of barbecue that you cook doesn't have to have bark on it. Bark is not something that's, I don't know. I might be the odd man out here. I could care less about bark on beef ribs, or bark on pork ribs, or bark on pork loin. I guess bark just gets generically used as the outer crust on everything in the barbecue world. I guess steak's got bark on it if you put enough stuff on there to get it. But it's focus more on the meat, and we'll talk about bark. I've got some practices that I think improve bark a lot, and part of that's spritzing the meat. Especially when it gets up to the stall point or starts getting close to the stall point, when you're cooking, if you're watching the cook and not cooking just completely unattended, you see a lot of things happen on a brisket and on a pork butt, and ribs as well. So all three of these fit this category. When you put that meat on there, after you've put the rub on it, that rub, everything's wet on the outside of the meat. And it's going to stay that way for a while. But as the meat cooks, the outer surface of that's going to start to dry out a little bit, but it's not going to start to dry out until you get up closer to the stall. And once you get to that point where the outer surface of that meat starts to dry out, if you spritz the meat periodically, it really helps a lot with the bark formation. If you spritz it every 15 or 20 minutes, or I'd say every 20 minutes as you're going through the stall, it really helps with the bark formation. And it also helps with your smoke ring. And that's a whole nother story we'll talk about later. This is something I learned from Harry Sue when I took his barbecue class. But I have a spritz that I use that's got a little bit of sugar in it from a couple of different sources. And that little bit of extra sugar coming in there during the stall period when you're spritzing this, it's not a lot of sugar, it's just a little bit, but it really helps with the bark formation. It really makes a big difference on the quality of that bark. But once again, don't worry about that till you understand how to do the cook itself. And we'll talk about spritzes some more, and I may give my spritz recipe out at some point. The Patreon people got a new recipe today that I've been working on for a long time. I've got a new it's a steak rub, if you want to call it a rub. It's a steak seasoning that's been posted to the Patreon group for the subscribers today. It's called the Man Cave Steak Shake. So there's that. And with that, we're getting close to the end of the whiskey. I'm not gonna finish it yet. Just a note on the Sinatra. All Jack Daniel's whiskey, with the exception of their flavored stuff and with the exception of their rye whiskey, that all uses the exact same grain bill. What's differentiated between all of the varieties of Jack Daniel's is how they're treated after the distillation. Once they go into the barrels, different things are happening. And one of the things that happens that's different with this Sinatra is it's a special barrel. It's aged in a barrel that's been It's their normal charred barrel, but they've gone around a spiral pattern on the inside of that barrel with a router, which has increased the surface area inside that barrel, and that charred area gets toasted a little bit. So this barrel of whiskey gets exposed to more surface area and a different char texture than the other whiskeys. And I don't think, I can't remember if the Sinatra Select is double filtered through the charcoal or not. I have to look that up. But anyway, that's one of the things that differentiates the Jack Daniels. So let's talk about Gadget this week. I have a new toy that came in. Let's see. Let's have a look at a couple of pictures again. This is the Fireboard 2 Pro. This is my third Fireboard. And that's the box that it came in. This is what it looks like. It looks just like the other Fireboard 2, but if you look down at that connector in there, you'll see right away that this is a K-type thermocouple. It's different than the connectors on the other probes, and here is the ambient probe that comes with that guy. And let me show you on camera here. I've got the Fireboard 2 here. It's just like the other, but these are the probe ports in this guy. It's a double prong connector, and oops, there, I just dropped it. And there's only 3 of them. It doesn't have 6 like the Fireboard 2 drive, and I've kept one of these out over here. Is my webcam going to focus on that? Probably not. But it's a K-type thermocouple, and these have 2 advantages that I can see so far over the others, over the other probe types. The first advantage is this probe is a lot more durable. This cable's a lot heavier, and this probe, the probe is rated to 1200 degrees Fahrenheit. The cable is only rated to 850, but that's 350 degrees higher, 300 degrees higher than the other probes that come with the other models. That's a lot more robust probe. And also, if you're not happy with that one that comes with it, you can use anybody's thermocouples here. And ThermoWorks makes a whole array of high-end K-type thermocouple probes that you could buy to use on this. They've got one that's got ceramic coated wire that's where the wire and the probe itself are rated to 2200 degrees Fahrenheit. I think the short version of that cable is $69. So you can have that if you want it. I don't need to cook at 2200, and I think this one's probably going to work for me. The reason I wanted to try this guy is because I want to see if I can run the Kamado Joe at pizza temperatures using the Dojo with the Fireboard. The iCommand stops at 500 degrees. Now, if you have an iCommand, I'll tell you right now, the iCommand will run the Kamado Joe with the Dojo, no problem. I've done it. But the iCommand stops at 500 degrees. It won't let you set any higher than that. The probe wires that come with the iCommand are only rated to a little over 500 degrees. So you don't want to run any hotter than that, or you will damage those probes. I've accidentally heat damaged a couple iCommand probes. Totally my fault, because boneheaded John wasn't watching what he was doing, and he let the wire get into the fire. And you can't do that. I wouldn't do that with these either. I wouldn't expose any of these probe wires to direct flame. It's got to be all in an indirect setup. But earlier this week, one of the first things I wanted to do, and this is something I did on Tuesday while I was feeling like crap, I loaded up the Kamado Joe Classic 2 with some charcoal and fired it up with the Fireboard 2, and my object was to run it up to 650. And the first thing I wanted to do is I'm going to run it up to 500 and let it hover there for a minute. Then I'm going to kick it up to 650 and see how things go. Well, I'm going to show you another screen share here. I've saved my Fireboard session with that, and I'm going to let you have a look with me here. This is the graph of what we got. First of all, let me show you the pictures. This is how we set up. I put a good bit of charcoal. I should have put a little more. I didn't put enough to get the results I really wanted here, but I lit it up in two places, and then I set the dojo on the grill, and this is how I run my Fireboard fan. I just kind of jam it in there. I don't use any of the adapters. I just let the slider hold that in place, and it works perfectly. And I use the ambient probe, and I just clip the ambient probe to the stem of the dome thermometer inside the classic dome. And this is important right here. The dojo is only rated to 700 degrees Fahrenheit. This thing is made out of cast aluminum, and cast aluminum's melting point somewhere in the 1100 to 1200 degree range. But when you've got a 700 degree temperature in the dome, you're a lot hotter than that underneath. So you got to be careful or you can damage. I've seen plenty of melted dojos by people that let their fire get away from them. So I engaged the Fireboard and let it do its thing. It brought the grill up, and once I got up to around 500 degrees, I let it sit there for a little bit. And then I ran into a little issue. I'm not sure what happened, but you can see on this graph here, right here when I moved it from 500, when I bumped the temperature up to 650, for some reason or another, my Fireboard lost communications with my network. I'm not sure what happened, and it never came back. I kept waiting because it normally picks back up when that happens, but it didn't this time, and I had to power cycle the Fireboard to get it to come back. But when it did, you can see during that time my temperature dropped because the fan wasn't running. But when I got it re-engaged, the fan kicked off, and it brought me on up to 650 degrees. And it held it there for a while, but it didn't hold it long because I burned up a lot of charcoal in the process getting there. I'm going to do this test again. I'm going to use a little more charcoal, and in order to get it hot quicker, all I've got to do is light it. I'll light it in 4 places instead of 2, and I will run the fan just a little bit harder. I had the fan maxed out at 40%. I didn't let the fan run any harder than 40% of maximum because I didn't want to take a chance on overheating my firebox and damaging the dojo. But I think I proved out here that this temperature controller with these probes are going to allow me to run the dojo in an automated manner rather than have to do this manually. And bringing the dojo up to temp's a little bit of work for the. I know those of you that have it know that it's a little bit of a challenge. It takes a little practice to get it there. But this guy, if you're willing to spend the money on a temp controller, this guy's capable of doing it. I just wanted to share that. I'm going to do another test. But here you can see I got the dial up to 650, almost 650 there. And my stone was temping out at 699 at 700 degrees there. That's perfect. That's an absolute great environment for cooking pizza when you've got the right kind of dough. So that's where it is. Tom says, yeah, you can turn the eye command on and let it blow, but I don't know what happen. I don't know what'll happen when you do that. I don't know. You're going to have to constantly monitor it because the eye command's a 20 CFM fan, and if it's running, I think it's a 20. This this Fireboard fan's 20 CFM also, and I was only running it at 40% of that. So you got to be careful with that, or you'll overheat it in there. Penny says, how does the Pizza Stone perform versus the Dojo? Yeah, the way I look at that is if you're cooking one pizza, if all you're ever going to cook at a time is one pizza, I don't think you need the Dojo. I like doing some other things in the Dojo besides pizza for a bunch of other reasons, but pretty much for a single pizza, if you're cooking in the 500 to 600 degree range, it does pretty good. The Kamado does pretty good by itself. The Dojo advantage is you don't lose your heat when you open the lid. I'm not sure I'm with you there, Tom. I understand you have to use the dome thermometer and not the probe on the iCommand, I guess. So yeah, that would work. Have you tried it? Have you run the Dojo up to 650 or 700 with the iCommands fan? Yeah, he likes the rock box. That rock box is badass. It just is. That thing, that's a pizza machine. It really is. You blaze that thing up and it comes up. You're north of 700 degrees in 30 minutes, and you're up there at 945. Yeah, it's Tom, I want to try something in the rock box. I was thinking about this today, or the other day I was talking to Jeff Ledbetter about it. I think was it's a gas fired. The rock box is gas fired. It's not wood fired, and I am able to detect the difference in the flavors you get from a wood fired oven and a gas fired oven. They're not quite the same. They're both good, but there's this little advantage that you get from I haven't messed with the wood box for the rock box because I don't want to spend a bunch of time having to hand make a bunch of small wood splits to make that happen. What I'm curious about, Tom, is if I take a wood chunk, you know, a fist size wood chunk like I might throw on my Kamado, once I've got that rock box up there roaring at 900 degrees, if I take a wood chunk and push it back into the back corner of that oven and let that thing start burning, let that thing blaze for a minute or two, I'm wondering if that will provide the missing flavor element in a gas-fired oven. I haven't tried that yet, but I want to try it. And you cook pizza probably more frequently than I do, so if you think about it, how about trying that and see what kind of result you get with it? Because I think that might work. That might do the trick. So let's see here. I've still got a good crew over here on Facebook. So the Facebook is lagging me by about 30 seconds, which is normal. I think the Crowdcast broadcast buffers for about 30 seconds before it starts sending over to Facebook. So all righty. I hope everybody's got a good weekend planned. This is going to be the first weekend I've gone to work in almost a year where I'm not going to be as stressed out about the possibility of me bringing COVID home. I work, you'd be amazed at the job I do. I'm an X-ray tech. I'm a radiologic technologist is what I'm called. And every shift I work, I am hands-on with anywhere from 10 to 25 COVID patients. It's I'm a lot more. I'm not as worried about getting it myself as I am giving it, as I am transmitting it to somebody else that it might kill. So yeah, I got to go back to work this weekend. I'm stress levels just going to be a little lower this time around. I think having had both doses of the vaccine, the second dose, you're supposed to reach with the Pfizer vaccine maximum efficacy about 2 weeks after the second dose. So I'm not to that point yet, but since my body spun up, and I could tell that my body had spun up an immune response to the second dose, I'm happy about that. Even if I should contract COVID, uh, I would either be asymptomatic or have very low symptoms with it at this point. Yeah, whiskey's more effective. I wish, man. I wish whiskey's the cure for a lot of things, but I'm not sure it'll take care of COVID. So, okay, I'm going to show you guys one more time the let's see here. If you want to follow me on my live streaming in a better way than Facebook, I want you to keep this link handy, or bookmark this link to the Crowdcast page, because my Friday night live streams, I am going to schedule those. You'll see it'll come up on the Crowdcast page, and you can do what they call register for that. It's free, but you'll get a reminder even, and then the link you'll get will bring you to the Crowdcast stream rather than the Facebook stream. You can watch it from whichever side you like the best, but I'm going to have to do some looking at this, and if I've got a video quality problems on Facebook, I'm going to have to ask Crowdcast about it, because I wasn't having video quality problems on Facebook until I started using Crowdcast. So we're going to look at that too. I'm spending too much money on this to have bad video quality. So we'll see what happens from there. And I'm probably going to wrap up here. Let's see if I've had any questions here in these that I need to answer. I'm glad that all you guys could join me here tonight. Let's see. I'm looking through the Crowdcast questions here. Russ says a dessert pizza. I made one of those. I made a video on one of those. I can't remember if it was for Atlanta Grill Company or Kamado Joe. It was really good, though. I did a strawberry one. I think it was strawberry. And let's go back over here and look at the Facebook crowd and see if we've got any questions over there. Nat's talking about the Uni pizza oven. That's another similar oven to the Rock Box that's quite popular. Sharon says she's been watching on the new format, but does that mean can't comment? I'm not sure why that would be. I'm still learning this format also, but I like the ability to do the sharing, and I like the ability that gives me an easier ability to bring guests on, and it also will let me schedule the live cast. Facebook won't give me that ability without third-party software, which is part of the reason I'm doing this. So, and yeah, it's not a situation of splitting the bandwidth, because this is running through a server somewhere else. I'm not streaming from my location to two different places. Yeah, but this video quality over here on Facebook's pathetic. I'm gonna have to figure that out. So, and I apologize for that video quality. It looks bad when I'm looking at the stream here. So I'll have to see if I can sort out what's causing that. So guys, I appreciate you hanging out with me. And until next week, this is John Setzler with Man Cave Meals.